Good evening, everyone. It is that time of the year again, and we're going to do a mock draft together, the first of 2025 on this channel. So let's get started with the Tennessee Titans, who are picking first. Now, I know a lot of people are giving the Titans a quarterback, whether it's Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. I've seen it go both ways. And me personally, I'm not super sold on any of the quarterbacks in this class. If you go back to my videos last year, I couldn't shut up about the quarterbacks in that draft class. And both of these guys at the top here, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, I genuinely don't believe are an immediate improvement over Will Levis. And I think if you're the Tennessee Titans and you're in that scenario where you have Will Levis for dirt cheap, and yeah, he's probably not the guy, but are you going to just reset the clock on another quarterback who's probably not the guy, when again, you're at the number one pick for a reason, because this team is just lacking talent on all sides of the ball in all aspects. And I don't think drafting a rookie quarterback who's probably not going to be anything special at the NFL level is going to change the trajectory of your team very much. So for me personally, I'm not going to give the Tennessee Titans a quarterback. I'm actually going to give them Abdul Carter, edge from Penn State, who has been playing incredibly well in the college football playoffs recently, and he was already a very highly touted prospect and was probably going to go somewhere between 6 and 9 before the playoffs, but now I think he has cemented himself as one of the top picks in this draft. So Abdul Carter to the Titans is my first pick, and the same thing with the Browns that I said about the Titans. Yes, their need for quarterback is great, but are either of the quarterbacks in this class really going to do enough for the roster to make up for the fact that they have other issues? Maybe not. However, I do think the Browns are a more talented team than the Titans, at least on paper. We'll see what happens this offseason, if Myles Garrett is still there or not. But I think the Browns are a team that we really have to watch in the offseason to know exactly what they're going to do. But for the same reason as the Titans, I don't think picking a quarterback in this class is going to change the fact that this roster just is not very good. They're losing Denzel Ward to free agency most likely. I can't remember the other corner that is on that team. His name is not coming to mind but I know he's there. I know they have two corners that are very good, but one of them is leaving in free agency. And I think Travis Hunter at the NFL level is going to play more corner than he is wide receiver, because I think he's a great corner. I think he's a good wide receiver. So I'm going to give the Browns Travis Hunter, and I already know that I will get comments about both of these top picks not being quarterback. I just really don't believe that it's a very good quarterback class, and I don't think either of the top two teams, as much as they do need quarterback, I don't think either one of them is really changing the trajectory of the franchise by taking one of these quarterbacks. If this was last year and you could get a Caleb Williams, a Drake May, a J.J. McCarthy, a Jaden Daniels, even a Penix or a Bo Nix, I think every single one of those quarterbacks taken in the top 15 from last year's draft would immediately change both of these teams for the better. I don't think I can say that about this year's quarterback class. And again, with the Giants, I don't think taking a quarterback in this draft is going to change them all that much. The difference here being their needs, honestly, I don't think are as desperate as the Titans. I don't think they are as significant as the Browns. I don't think they need as many things as these other two teams. And I think a quarterback like Cam Ward is an immediate upgrade over the likes of Tommy DeVito or Drew Lock, even though Drew Lock maybe not by much. So I am going to give them Shedeur Sanders for the Giants at 3. And I give them Shedeur Sanders over Cam Ward because I think Shedeur Sanders is the better quarterback. And in fact, I think he's the much better quarterback, as much as I don't think he's anything special, right? I don't think Shedeur Sanders is going to be this crazy prolific game changer quarterback. I think he's kind of just a bridge. If I really, think about it, I think he's mostly just a bridge for, hopefully stabilizing a Giants organization that's been terrible for a decade or more. But I do think Shedeur Sanders is significantly better than Cam Ward. So, Shedeur Sanders off to New York. The Patriots now at pick 4. For a while there, it looked like they had the number 1 pick pretty much secured. They won their last game of the season, which then knocked them to 4th. So with the Patriots, I think they would have loved to have one of these top 2 guys, Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. I think they would have absolutely loved that because, again, the Patriots roster is really not good. Except for Drake May, I don't think there's a single player on this Patriots team that you can't replace or upgrade from. And of course, recently they signed Mike Vrabel to be their head coach, and I think that changes a lot about how this team is going to draft with Mike Vrabel in charge. If it was a guy like Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn who declined their interview, and I thought he declined because he figured Ben Johnson would get the job, but that didn't happen. They went straight to Vrabel. So with Vrabel in there, I don't think we're going to see Tedora McMillan. I see McMillan get mocked to the Patriots a lot now that they're at 4. But with Mike Vrabel there, I really don't think we're going to see them take wide receiver in the first round. Maybe they go wide receiver in the offseason. Again, that's something we have to take note of because this is taking place so much earlier than the real draft. So a lot is going to change between now and April. But I think there is an outside possibility that they do go Ashton Genty at 4 with Mike Vrabel in charge. Because Mike Vrabel loves to run the football. That's just how he is. That's how his offense operated in Tennessee. It was not a fast offense. It was not a pass play offense. It was, we have Derrick Henry. We're going to run the ball. If we need to, we'll throw it 5 yards with Ryan Tannehill. Now, Drake May is much better than Ryan Tannehill ever was. And I do think Mike Vrabel elevated the play of Ryan Tannehill quite a lot while he was in Tennessee. So there is a lot of moving pieces with this pick of the Patriots. And kind of like the Browns, I think the Patriots is a team that we're really going to have to watch the offseason to get a better sense of what they're going to do in the draft. But I do think there is a legitimate chance that they take Ashton Genty at 4. I'm not going to do that this time around. But I am going to give the Patriots, I think in this instant, they would probably go tackle or offensive line just in general. Will Campbell is a guy I like. I think Will Campbell's very good. I've seen a lot of reports recently over the last couple of days that Will Campbell probably projects to be a guard in the NFL. So I don't know if you want to take a guard all the way up at 4. And then some of these other guys, I'm not high enough on to take them at 4. So the Patriots probably trade down in all honesty, because again, I don't think I don't think even for a second Mike Vrabel is thinking wide receiver at this spot. As much as they need wide receiver, if it was Ben Johnson, I think they do go wide receiver. With Mike Vrabel in charge, there's just no way. I don't see it happening whatsoever. And I don't want to be too unrealistic. This is, of course, only the first mock draft of the year, so I can get a little crazy if I want to. So you know what? Why not? We'll make them reach a little bit, and I'm gonna give them Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. I like Kelvin Banks Jr. a lot. Patriot O-line is horrific. They definitely need help on the O-line, and I don't think there are many answers in free agency to fix their O-line. Cam Robinson, Trey Smith, who they could get. They do have a lot of money. But again, we need to watch the offseason for the Patriots to really understand what's going on. But again, I think the most entertaining option, and maybe in my next mock draft, I'll go full on crazy, what would be the funniest, most entertaining way to go. Maybe then I'll give him Ashton Genty, because I do genuinely believe that possibility is there. But anyway, the Jaguars now at number 5. I think this is a pretty cut and dry pick. It's either going to be Mason Graham or Will Johnson, one of the Michigan defenders here. Depends on, how much they value interior D-line over corner, which I think are two very important positions in the NFL nowadays. Corner, maybe still more so than interior defensive line, but this position is only getting more and more expensive every year. Interior pass rush comes at a premium, and all the good teams have one. All the good teams have a really good defensive interior, and maybe Jacksonville doesn't quite lean with the same philosophy, but either way, it's going to be one of these two dudes. If one of them goes before 5, it'll be the other one. But this time around, why not give him Will Johnson, who I think is the best corner in this class, best pure corner at least. Obviously, Travis Hunter has the potential to be a two-way guy. I don't necessarily think he's going to be a two-way guy, but just having the potential does elevate him slightly in different ways, but just slightly puts Travis Hunter over Will Johnson. But Will Johnson, I do think, is the better pure corner. And I don't think Jacksonville would complain either way, getting one of those two dudes, but that is how it is. Now, the Raiders here at number 6, with only one quarterback off the board. Is Cam Ward better than Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew? Most likely, yes. How much better? I'm not so sure. But unlike the Titans, of course, and the Browns, where I really don't think Cam Ward is a huge upgrade over either of their quarterbacks, as bad as Deshaun has been in more ways than one, and Will Levis is just kind of a guy. I really don't think either of these quarterbacks, again, are immediately better than either of the quarterbacks already on the Titans or the Browns. But with the Raiders and the Giants, I think the argument is more clear that, well, the Giants especially, it's very obvious that Shedeur Sanders is better than the quarterbacks they have. And I think the same could be said about Cam Ward. And Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew's probably getting cut. So when you ask me, would I take Cam Ward over Aiden O'Connell, the answer, of course, is yes. So we will give Cam Ward to the Raiders and hope they have a good coach for once. The New York Jets at pick 7. If Cam Ward is still available and doesn't go to the Raiders, I think they do bite the bullet and draft a quarterback. If Cam Ward, such as this instance, is not available, they're probably going to go with Mason Graham. if I had to make an educated guess. I think they also need tackle really bad, actually. Tyron Smith is 34 on a 1-year deal. Olu Fashanu is hurt. Morgan Moses is 30 on a 1-year deal, coming off his worst year ever as a pro. And, of course, he was injured last year, and I think he missed some time this year. I didn't watch a lot of Jet games, to be fair, so I think, actually, I'm talking myself into giving them a tackle or just offensive line in general, because the way I'm reading this right now, a lot of these guys here, like Josh Connerly, Wyatt Milam, Arante Ursary down here, Will Campbell, Josh Shimmons, Jonas Savaiinaya, a lot of these guys probably project to guard long term, at least as much as I've read and looked into offensive line. A lot of these guys just don't have the size to be tackles at the NFL level, but I know the Jets' guards aren't nearly as bad as their tackle situation is, and I haven't done as much work on tackles yet this year, so I don't know exactly who is going to end up where in the NFL, but the more I think about it, the more it's like, yeah, the Jets need a tackle. They really do. I know they drafted Fashanu last year, but Fashanu had injury history, and he got injured again this year. I don't remember the severity of the injury, but you could never have too many starting caliber offensive linemen. Look at the Lions, look at the Eagles, look at the Bills suddenly, out of nowhere. Offensive line, much like interior defensive line, it comes at a premium more and more every year, so I think we're going to give the Jets Will Campbell. Now, the Carolina Panthers defense comes to mind, wide receiver comes to mind, but they have Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker, who they're probably going to let them play out a year and see where they are next year before they really go, maybe we need to bring in another guy. Adam Thielen is still there for another year as well, so next year probably can count on the Panthers to consider wide receiver, maybe even later in this draft consider wide receiver. Running back is another thing that I think Carolina will be interested in upgrading in this draft class, but maybe not so far as to get Ashton Genty just yet. So I think we're going to stick with the defensive side of the ball for Carolina, and we're going to give them Mason Graham, probably the best interior defender in this draft class, though there are a lot of solid guys in that regard. Putting Mason Graham next to Derek Brown is really going to be something to watch in Carolina if it does happen. I think that will be an immediate improvement and maybe gets them closer to competing in the South, because the South is not a very good division. As you can see, there's another South team right here at pick 9 with the Saints. I know this says they need wide receiver, and I can understand to a degree why that's there. Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave both missed significant time this year with injuries, and as much as I loved Chris Olave coming out of the draft a few years ago, I don't know how long his NFL career really projects to be with as injured as he's been. So I understand why they have wide receiver there listed. I don't think they're going to go wide receiver right away this draft. I think they just have too many needs elsewhere, specifically defensively, because everyone on the Saints defense that's any good, even in the slightest way, even a slight bit of promise, is either a free agent or getting really old. So I think the Saints are probably in line to go defense. I know their offensive line has had issues this year, but I think that's something they probably look to in the second round or later. I think we're going to give them some kind of defensive piece. So let's take a look at edge rushers. There's a lot of players here that are, maybe not as explosive as, an Aiden Hutchinson or Will Anderson, but there are guys here that you definitely do like. And then on the interior, probably not. Probably stick to edge. And I am going to give them Jack Sawyer out of Ohio State. I know that's higher than he goes on a lot of boards, but as I did my research for this video, I really like Jack Sawyer. The more I watch of him, the more I really start to like his game and the way he plays. So, big fan of Jack Sawyer. He's going to New Orleans. The Chicago Bears at 10. This is another spot where I really think there's a shot. Ashton Jeanty can go with Will Campbell being gone, and I think Will Campbell is probably one of the top picks for the Chicago Bears. Probably a guy they've looked a lot into already, just because of the potential to play him on the inside, because the Bears' offensive line needs everything. It needs tackle, guard, center, all of it, except maybe right tackle, maybe. But their O-line is not good, so they need... Having a versatile piece there is a huge upside, but Will Campbell and Calvin Banks are both gone. I don't think they'd be as high on some of these other guys. Josh Connerly I really like. Cameron Williams I really like. Arante Ursary. I'm a huge Jonas Avaiinaya fan. But I don't think at number 10 is when they go and grab one of these guys. They do have the Panthers' second round pick. I think they still have their own as well. So they have some high picks later that they could use on offensive linemen. So I think that is something to keep in mind, is, what other picks teams have. I don't think this is a trade down candidate. Not that I'm doing trades or even have the ability to do any trades with PFF. But I think the Chicago Bears probably just stick and pick and take the best player available, which is, in this instance, Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. The 49ers at pick 11, I think this is very likely going to be an offensive lineman of some kind. Hopefully a versatile type of lineman. I know they really like those kind of players that can play multiple positions in San Francisco. So if we look at our options here, Armand Membu, I know, has skyrocketed up a lot of boards, and I think he's more of a true tackle. From what I understand, he's not like Will Campbell or Milam or Connerly or some of these other guys that are probably not quite the size you're looking for. So maybe not Membu for the 49ers. I think they like more versatile guys there. And in this instance, I think I'm actually going to give them Connerly. Because I think he can play both guard and tackle. I think it's less of a, he's probably going to be best inside. He'll probably be serviceable at both. Of course, anything can happen in the NFL level, but I do like Connerly to the 49ers, just looking at it. So, Josh Connerly, tackle out of Oregon for the 49ers. The Cowboys now at 12. Would it be wild to say I could give them Tedora McMillan? Would that be too out of the ballpark for what the Cowboys need? Obviously, running back is a huge need for the Cowboys. I think they will sign someone in free agency and call it good. And especially with Ashton Genty no longer being available, probably not going to see another running back in the first round, I would assess. I know this is a class with a lot of running back talent, but I don't think there's anyone even close to Ashton Genty that you would see come in the top 15 like this. So probably not running back. Tackle, I could see them go for it later. Edge, I don't think is actually that big of a need, unless Micah Parsons actually does leave, of course, but I don't think that's a huge need for the Cowboys. And it's just staring me right in the face, so I think I am going to give them Tadora McMillan, who in this mock draft has fallen quite a bit. He's fallen all the way down to 12. A lot of people have him much higher than that. But, we see players fall all the time for different reasons. Maybe there's just other needs that teams are going for. So I don't think it's entirely out of the realm of possibility for Tadora McMillan to end up as a Dallas Cowboy. And in this instance, he does. Next, with the Dolphins, I've had the same pick here in every mock draft I've done with friends or just for fun, and that is Malachi Starks. I know he's a safety, and safeties aren't valued as much as they used to be, but I think he can play multiple positions at the NFL level, whether it's free safety, strong safety, or nickel. I think that versatility is definitely something that will elevate his draft stock. And he's probably the best true safety in this class. And I don't think the Dolphins are going to hold on to Javon Holland, who is a free agent. So I think Malachi Starks makes a lot of sense there. And I've mocked them taking Malachi Starks in pretty much everything. The same is true with the Colts. I give the Colts the same guy every time, and it's always Tyler Warren. The Colts have a lot of issues, one of them being their GM. The Colts have a lot of issues, and a tight end, while it doesn't, I don't think, at least, move the needle significantly towards fixing those issues, they've just missed on the tight end position so much consistently for like the last 10 years. I think they keep missing. I think the best tight end I remember playing for the Colts in the last decade is Eric Ebron, so they got to do something about that position, and just having that consistency, that glue, just having a check down option for Anthony Richardson, I think, is going to make a huge difference. But again, it will not fix the underlying issue with the Colts. But it might with Anthony Richardson, and maybe that goes a long way. But Tyler Warren to the Colts is my pick every single time. I think it makes way too much sense for them to do, which is probably why they won't do it, but we will see. The Falcons now at pick number 15. The Falcons have needed an edge rusher for a long time. The last 4 drafts, I think, they've needed an edge rusher. I don't think there's anyone they can go out and get in free agency or by trade, even if Max Crosby, Micah Parsons, and Myles Garrett all genuinely do ask out, which we've heard some rumors about all 3. Even if all 3 of them are available, I don't think the Falcons are getting either of them. I think they should have taken an edge rusher last year. They didn't. Even with their later picks, they didn't. I don't think they regret the Michael Penix pick in hindsight. I think they regret the Kirk Cousins contract, but I think it should have been Penix and then immediately an edge rusher, but that's not what happened. So in this time, as we stand here, the Falcons are going edge rusher. And there's a lot of edge rushers here for them to choose from. I think it's just a pick your poison kind of thing and hope you're right. I think I'm thinking here between Nick Scorton and James Pierce Jr. I'm very high on James Pierce Jr. Same with Jack Sawyer, of course, which is why Jack Sawyer's the first one off the board. I don't think James Pierce is necessarily the kind of guy that Atlanta likes, but I really like him. So I'm going to give him Nick Scorton, who a lot of people believe is the best edge rusher in this class. I think he's maybe third or fourth, but I think he is a guy that you can plug right into the Falcons and immediately make a difference, which is the big thing when you're drafting in the first round. You want guys that make a difference right away, and Nick Scorton is definitely that kind of player. And again, the Falcons have just needed that for a very long time. So Nick Scorton to the Atlanta Falcons. The Arizona Cardinals are here at number 16. Offensive line, it says right there, big need. I think defense is more important for them. They drafted a guy last year who I suddenly forgot the name of, who actually, surprisingly, played very well on the defensive interior. I know they drafted another guy higher than that was hurt as a rookie for quite a bit. I don't know if he came back or not. Someone could probably tell me in the comments who I'm trying to think of. I know his name starts with a B, but I don't remember who he is. But they drafted some defensive guys last year that were surprisingly very good. So their defense was way better than I thought it would be. I still think they need to do something about it. And Kenneth Grant is right there, who is another very, very good defensive player out of Michigan. There's a lot of those this year. And I think it just makes too much sense for the Cardinals. So I think that's a plug-and-play pick right there. You pick them, set them on the inside, forget about it. The Bengals is another team that I think just goes defense no matter what. I know it doesn't say on here anything more than D-line, but I think every single defensive position, especially because there's no guarantee that Trey Hendrickson is staying. He is a free agent. Of course, we'll have to wait and see what happens in the offseason, but I think they could use any number of defensive players there. I like Benjamin Morrison a lot. I've had him go to the Bengals a few times. I like Shamar Stewart. Jalen Walker is a guy I also think could definitely make a difference for the Bengals. I think I'm going to give them an edge rusher. And I think this might be the time for James Pierce Jr. He's probably my second favorite edge rusher out of this class. I really like James Pierce Jr. I've been high on him for months now. I know his draft stock has fallen over the last couple months during the draft process. He has fallen down some boards, which is fine, but I still think he's very, very good. And I think he will fit very nicely into Cincy and solve some of their issues defensively that have held them back this season, despite incredible play from Joe Burrow. A lot of people have been mocking them a wide receiver, and I just don't think that's very realistic. There are plenty of wide receivers they could go and pick up in free agency, even if they do lose T. Higgins, which isn't necessarily a guarantee. They could always bring T. Higgins back and further destroy the defense money-wise, but whatever. The Seattle Seahawks at pick 18, another team that needs offensive and defensive linemen. I think in this instance, offensive line makes a lot of sense for me. Just because I think Geno had I think Geno was like second or third in pressure rate this year. He was getting pressured a lot, and that's never good, especially when your quarterback is getting older. So I think this is definitely a pick where we could see another lineman go. And when I'm looking at it, I think Wyatt Milam is a guy that sticks out. Um, Josh Simmons is another guy that could go here. I don't think they're going for the more pure tackle kind of guy like Armand Membu. So I think Wyatt Milam makes a lot of sense for the Seattle Seahawks to shore up that offensive line and hopefully start preparing for a future without Geno Smith. Probably next year is when I would expect the Seahawks to make a play at a quarterback. Maybe still in this draft, in like the third round, they go for one of the other guys that I think might have higher potential than Ashurter Sanders, but that is a conversation for a different video, of course. The Denver Broncos is another one where I give them one of two players, depending on who falls to 19. In this instance, the first of those two options is still here in Luther Burden. So Luther Burden, congratulations. You are going to Mile High in Denver. I have been a huge Courtland Sutton fan since he was drafted. I really do like Courtland Sutton, but he's getting old and he has not stayed particularly healthy. And the way that we've seen Bo Nix play this year has been very shocking to me. I thought Bo Nix was QB7 last year, but he had a great year in Denver. I can't take that away from him. So giving him another weapon makes a lot of sense. Whether it's Luther Burden or Colston Loveland out of Michigan, the tight end, it's always been one of those two players for me. So this time it's Luther Burden. Maybe next time it'll be Loveland. The Buccaneers is a team that needs a lot of help. More help than I think a lot of people realize, just because they are a playoff team, but they did get eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, and this has not been updated yet for Monday night, with the Vikings now picking at 24, and some of these other picks are in different places, but that's fine. I'm not going to worry about it right now. I think Jalen Walker makes a lot of sense for Tampa. Levante David is only getting older. No idea how long he's going to stay. He might even retire this year. But Jalen Walker, I think, is a good pick for the Buccaneers. I think they can address some of these other issues later on in the draft. The Pittsburgh Steelers. I think this is a pretty cut and dry pick here, so I'm going to give him Emeka Ibuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State. I think Ibuka is very, very good. I don't think he is quite as good as Tedora McMillan. I think he's probably more comparable to Luther Burden. But I do like Ibuka a lot, and the Steelers have a lot of issues and somehow squeak their way into the playoffs every other year, it feels like. But I think there are a lot of things that need to be addressed in Pittsburgh, and taking Ibuka probably doesn't fix everything. Kind of like Tyler Warren to the Colts, where it's like, they have other issues that are probably going to hold them back, but just giving them a safety blanket feels pretty good. Whether their quarterback's going to be Russell Wilson or Justin Fields or whoever next year, just having that something extra for them to throw to that's not just George Pickens and whoever, I think that should stabilize their offense quite a bit. With the Rams at pick 22, I do think Benjamin Morrison makes a lot of sense, because their corners are definitely the weak spot on their defense right now. They rebuilt their defensive line the last two drafts after Aaron Donald retired a year ago, or maybe 2 years ago now. The defensive line has been completely refurbished, and you can barely tell Aaron Donald is gone. They've got Kobe Turner, Braden Frisk, Jared Verse. What's the fourth guy's name? They got 4 guys. Kobe Turner, that's his name. They've got 4 guys on that line that are all very young and playing very, very well. So they rebuilt the line. I think it's time they start rebuilding the secondary. I'm going to give them Benjamin Morrison. I've seen a lot of people start giving the Rams Colston Loveland, and I just don't think they care too much about tight end. I don't think Sean McVay has ever been a guy that says, "Oh, I need me a good tight end." They just sort of make do with whatever they have. So I don't think it's very realistic that they go for a guy like Colston Loveland. But Benjamin Morrison, very, very good player out of Notre Dame, and I think it makes a lot of sense there. So Benjamin Morrison to the Rams. Pick 23, the Chargers. This, I think, is where we could see Colston Loveland. It's also where I think we could possibly see the second running back go, because Jim Harbaugh loves to run the football, but he also coached Michigan last year, and this is a guy that's familiar with the system. I think he's a pretty good blocker, I think. So Colston Loveland would make a lot of sense going to the Chargers, which is a team that has become a run-first team. Colston Loveland to the Chargers. The Packers, another team that lists wide receiver, and I don't really think is actually that big of a need. They do have a lot of guys that probably aren't, top-tier talents like we thought they would be. Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, probably, are high-end wide receiver 2s in the NFL. So I don't think this wide receiver need is all that important. I think their more pressing issue is the pass rush. It has just not been there the last couple games, and I think that has really ruined a lot of their playoff hopes. I think there are other issues in Green Bay that need to be addressed as well, but I'm not, the owner, so the only thing I can control right now is their draft pick, and I'm going to give them an edge rusher, and I think that edge rusher is going to be Mykel Williams out of Georgia. They love those Georgia players in Green Bay. Not as much as they do in Philly, but Green Bay has a lot of Georgia Bulldogs on it, so I think Mykel Williams there makes a lot of sense. The Texans now, 25. This is another one that I think is pretty much just immediately pick the best offensive lineman that's on the board. In this case, that is Josh Simmons after some other players have gone at the top of the order. And Josh Simmons is another one that I think has some versatility to maybe move to the inside of that line. But even if he doesn't, the Texans definitely need offensive line help. It was one of their biggest weaknesses this year. The Washington Commanders at 26. This is a team that I think does need wide receiver. Do I really like many of these guys that are left? I'm not super high on Matthew Golden. There's nothing there that really speaks to me. Alec Iomanner, is a guy that I'm very intrigued by. And, I don't think the Commanders are really looking for the next big Jordan Addison, Jackson Smith, T. Higgins kind of, difference maker at wide receiver, because they do still have Terry McLaurin, but Terry McLaurin by himself isn't enough. Running back, I think they could upgrade on. But as it stands, A.O. Manor is really speaking to me right now, so I think I'm going to give them A.O. Manor. Alec A.O. Manor out of Stanford for the Washington Commanders. The Baltimore Ravens now, 27. Another team that probably could use wide receiver, but I've been giving them Stephon Diggs in the offseason. Like, every time I talk about the offseason with some of my some of my friends who are big Ravens fan, I'm just like, hey, what if you guys go out and just get Stephon Diggs, Because I don't think the Ravens need a number one. I think Zay Flowers will be that guy. But I think a guy like Stephon Diggs or Darius Slayton or just a number two that can catch the football more reliably than Rashad Bateman, I think they will go out and get in the offseason. So I don't think wide receiver is their biggest need here. You know what? Because he's right here. I think I'm going to give them Armand Membu for the Baltimore Ravens. Make that offensive line a bit better. Makes it easier to run the football with a strong offensive line. I know Ronnie Stanley is a free agent. At least I think Ronnie Stanley is still with Baltimore. I think. Whoever is in Baltimore is a free agent, so I think it makes sense for them to grab a tackle here. And Armand Membu is probably the best pure tackle left on the board, so I think that makes a lot of sense. For the Vikings at 28, real life 24, I've seen a lot of people give him a running back really high, and I understand why you give him a running back, but it sounds to me like they're really going to try and get these interiors more up to speed. So there are two ways I think the Vikings could go about this. I think it'll either be like a Tyleik Williams, Walter Nolan, Deion Walker kind of pick, depending on how their offseason goes, or it'll be a Jonas Savaiinaia, Arante Ursary kind of thing. And the way the board has fallen, Tyleik Williams seems really good. Walter Nolan seems really good. I guess it depends on what they're looking for. I don't remember which one of these guys is more of a nose, which I think is what they need, is more of that 5-tech, just big, sit in the middle of the defense kind of player, and I don't remember which one of these guys is close to that. If either of them are, I don't quite remember. But I do like Tyleik Williams a little bit more than Walter Nolan, so I'm going to give them Tyleik Williams for the Minnesota Vikings. And the Buffalo Bills, now at 28, I don't think wide receiver, PFF, I have my issues with, because I think they prioritize wide receiver a little too much, on a lot of these teams, that I don't think it's that big of a deal, right? Like, I don't think the Bills, I understand why it's here, but I don't think it's such a high priority that you need to put wide receiver at the front of the list. Anyway, I think this is another team that will probably look for a defensive player, whether that is defensive interior or corner. I don't think it's going to be a linebacker. I do like Savon Revel quite a bit. Of course, he does have some injury concerns. Jahdae Barron is very good, but if Brian Branch isn't going in the first round 2 years ago, Jahdae Barron's not going in the first round either. I think this is the time and place to give them Walter Nolan. Back-to-back defensive interiors are off the board. The Eagles, again, I don't know why wide receiver is their number one need according to PFF. I don't believe Devonta Smith or A.J. Brown are free agents. Don't believe so. I don't think guard is that much of a need either. Corner, I don't think is that big of a need. Edge rusher is probably where I do agree with PFF. To what degree, I don't know. The Eagles are honestly pretty hard to pick for, because they don't have any glaring weaknesses to me, like some of these other teams, even these two guys down here. But with the Eagles, I think this is probably just a BPA pick, and in my assumption, in my thought process, I think the best player available is actually Landon Jackson. I don't want to make so many picks with edge rushers that are against consensus, but there are just a lot of guys that I think I value differently than most other people. And Landon Jackson is a freak. Landon Jackson's like 6'9", 280 something. Landon Jackson is an absolute freak of nature. And I think it would be really fun to see him on the Eagles. But again, I don't really see a glaring weakness for the Eagles. For the Chiefs, offensive tackle makes a lot of sense to me. How many of these guys are actually going to be true tackles in the NFL? Hard to say. I think Cameron Williams is the best available, so we will give them Cameron Williams. With the Lions, Shamar Stewart has fallen quite a bit. I like Shamar Stewart. I think they will honestly probably go and try to... Because, the Lions are a team that is fundamentally built around their offensive line. It's one of the best offensive lines in all of football. You could even argue it's the best. I wouldn't, I would find it hard to argue against that. My issue with the Lions' offensive line is that it's getting really old. Like, outside of Penei Sewell, I think the average age on that line is like 32. So I fully believe that they're going to go out and try to make sure they have backups ready. And there are a lot of guys here that, I think you could bring in and, ensure that you have that advantage for a long time. Tate Ratledge, Tyler Booker. The one that really sticks out to me, though, and I keep thinking about it all the time, is actually Jonas Avaiinaya out of Arizona. I think this guy is going to make the switch at the NFL level to guard, and I think he's going to be probably the best guard in the entire class. So if this possibility is here for the Lions, I know they probably want to get a second edge rusher alongside Aiden Hutchinson. But Jonas Avaiinaya to the Lions has just been speaking to me like crazy over the last couple of weeks that I have been doing these. So this is what our first mock draft looks like. I will get back to doing more of these over the course of the offseason. Probably not as frequently as I did them last year. I think the next one will probably be after this Super Bowl. But I do thank you, as always, for tuning in to watch these videos where I talk about the NFL. It is a severe passion of mine. Some might even call it an affliction. But again, thank you for tuning in. I do appreciate your viewership and support. I hope to speak with you all again soon, and goodbye for now.